what's up guys, it's Doug here. We're back with another install video. We got a 2022 6.7 Powerstroke Lariat. This thing's freaking beautiful. We're installing an S&S disaster kit. I know they just came out with that new pump conversion on these things, but they just released that they're even selling these things, and even the pre-orders are gonna be backordered like crazy. So for now, we're still gonna install the S&S disaster kit on this one. Truck has like no miles on it, so his CP4 should be good for a long time still. So just gonna go ahead and throw that kit on here, and I'm gonna do an install video. I'll go ahead and do a quick walk around the truck. This thing's beautiful. We're gonna be doing a lot of work to this thing. So this thing has little touches here and there everywhere on this thing. It's all white, like color matched everything. Custom wheels and tires. These are fuel wheels, 35 12.5 tires. It's got the lettering all. Got the black inserts on here so they pop. Tonneau covers. You got the full deck system in here. The guy's a big coyote hunter, so he's definitely got the setup on this thing. Crazy custom sound system in here. 4 8-inch subs underneath the rear seat. It's got a custom mount behind the seat for the amp and everything. And yeah, you just had this thing ceramic coated and paint protection film put on this thing. Let's get a shot in the front. This white is beautiful. I love the color match on this thing. Color match mirrors and everything. Super sharp truck. But yeah, let's jump right into the install. All right, so we're just gonna jump right into it here in the engine bay of this 22. Everything's nice and new and clean. I love it. But yeah, first things first, I'm gonna go ahead and uninstall this air intake tube. Just got a clamp there, loosen those up, and grab a hold of this thing. You have to twist it back a little bit to get it off there. Twist it, slide it off that side. Okay, and the intake's out of the way. I'll set up my tripod here in a minute. I just wasn't prepared when I started this video, so I'll just do a couple little things and I'll set up the tripod when we get into the big stuff. But next thing, we're gonna undo this vacuum line. There's just a black push clip there and one there, and then you'll be able to pop this line right out of your way. I already undid one of these. You're gonna want to undo that. Get your trim removal tool, pop that one out. Well, you got your trim removal tool in your hand, pop that one out. And then there's two 8mm brackets, two 8mm, can't talk today. Two 8mm bolts on this bracket. You pop those off and get that bracket out of the way. So I'll do those real quick and then we'll start recording again. All right, so the vacuum line's out of the way. There's just, like I said, that push connector right there, and there's two just clips that clip onto this coolant hose. So you undo those and you'll be able to pop that thing right out, get it out of your way. And then, like I said, pop that Christmas tree off there, that one back there, and then now we'll go ahead and take that bracket off. Yeah, so we're gonna try to remove this stuff so we don't have to take the cowl off. They say you have to get this intake out, but I've seen it done without it by removing this stuff out of the way, so that's the way we're gonna chase it. So, like I said, after you take this trim clip off here and the trim clip off here, got two bolts on this bracket you want to take off, 8mm bolts. So, all right, there's a bracket and the two bolts. Put that somewhere safe and move on to the next part. All right, so the next thing you're going to want to do, this is your intake air temperature sensor. You're going to want to undo this. There's a trim clip holding it on right here, and then a clip on this coolant line. Undo those, pull this out of the way. We're just going to tuck it back behind this power steering reservoir. Grab our trim clip tools. Underneath this thing. Here we go. Pop that out of there. Pinch your connection, unplug it, put that back out of the way. And if you want, you can actually, okay, that one's not coming off. Okay, don't try to undo that one, you end up breaking something. Just tuck that sensor back out of the way here, and then we'll keep moving. Next, we're going to take off this coolant line. I didn't want to drain any coolant out of this truck yet, so we're going to pinch that clamp off, pinch the hose off, and just lift this, undo this trim clip here, and then just tuck all that hose off over onto the passenger side of the engine bay. So now we got our coolant line out of the way. So now you're going to want to take off your cold side and hot side intercooler piping. And to do that, there's a clip here. You pop that up, and then this slides off that way. And then there's a clamp down here at the intercooler. It's a 7mm bolt. And then this side, 7mm clamp there again. And a similar style clamp over there on the turbo. You just pop that up and pull that right out. Okay, so now we got the cold side and hot side pipe out. That hot side was really on that intercooler. I had to work on that a little while to get that off. One other thing I did notice is when I was leaning over, putting pressure on the coolant pipe, there's a little bit of coolant spitting out of this overflow, so I just put a rag around that just to help prevent any mess. Yep, so now we'll keep moving forward. Next thing I'm going to do is remove this throttle body, just because you might not need to, depending on how you do this. If you remove the cowl, you probably won't need to. But because of the way I'm trying to remove this without removing the cowl, I'm going to need this out of the way to clear the fan shroud. So that's just 4 8mm bolts and a connection on your actuator right here, and you can pull that piece out. So now we have the throttle body off, and there is a metal gasket in between here, so make sure you capture that when you go to pull that off. Don't drop it. That throttle body will not be going back on this truck because it is getting an upgrade. That'll be in another video, but go ahead and keep moving forward now. Next thing you're gonna want to do is there's 2 bolts holding this dipstick tube on. One right there on that stud, and then there's a bolt right there on the back of the manifold. Take those 2 off just so we can get a little bit of play out of this, scoot this thing up out of the way, and then we'll move on to getting this fuel bowl out of here. So next we got these 3 fuel lines here we have to take off. You just got these push clips. You have to push the tabs together, pull this piece up. Same thing down here, push these together, pull this part up. Definitely get some rags underneath here because you are going to have some residual fuel leaking out of these and out of the fuel bowl. So make sure you get some rags tucked underneath there so you don't make a mess. And we'll go ahead and get started on that. All right, so now that we have our fuel filter out of there, got all of our lines disconnected. It's that one, this one, and this one I've tucked out of the way here. Like I said, keep rag down there so you don't get fuel all over the place. And now there is 4 bolts on this thing we're going to take out. Let's see if I can get there's that one there. Wait. Yep, one there. One there. There's one. This rag's probably covering it right now. Yep, one there, and there's one way down there behind that fuel line. You have to get my hands in here. You have to kind of pull that fuel line out of the way. Now the fuel filter bowls out. I wanted to give you a better shot of where those bolts are. So there's that one there, this one here. You can kind of see that one underneath that sensor there. You have to push this line out of the way a little bit, and that one there. Those are the 4 that hold that housing in. All right, guys, I went through and did some work off camera because this next part is not fun. Trying to get this upper intake manifold out. So there's 4 bolts over there, 4 bolts over there, and there's 3 up here in the front. All right, it's hard to even get it on video, but that one right there is not a good time to get to. You see that stud back there? I had to take the nut off of that to pry that bracket up a little bit, because there was just not enough room to get a socket down in there. But after I did that, it's not so bad. Yeah, so there's 1, that stud sticking up, 2, 3. There's one behind it that you can't see. Yeah, same thing on this side. That stud, 1, 2, and then, oh, sorry, 1, 2, 3. And then there's one behind you. You just can't see, but the ones back there actually aren't that hard to get to. The hardest one was that one right down there. And then after that, there's 1 right here, 2 right here. You got to take off your pipe here that goes to your EGR, and you have to take off your crankcase vent tube, which is also not a good time. There's a little heat shrink boot that's over this. You have to pull that back, and then you have to fight with these clips to get it to spin, and then pop that thing off. But now that we got all that stuff out of the way, this upper and lower intake should be good to come out. All right, so there was a couple things I did that didn't show before I took it out. So I unplugged this sensor just to avoid from breaking it out. I'm just gonna plug it back in before I forget. And then let's see if the camera can see it. Okay. Yeah, what I was getting caught on was this little tab here on the fan shroud. So if you're getting the most out and you're having problems and don't see what you're stuck on, check this little tab here. That's what was holding me up. Yeah, I got that out of the way. Had to unplug this plug here. This goes to the EGT probe that was inside the pipe. I left that hooked down to the lower intake manifold. And then also there's a clamp on the turbo here you gotta loosen up, which kind of scares me because I didn't loosen it up and it came right off. And that wasn't the first clamp I found that was loose on the truck, and this truck's brand new, it's never been taken apart, so it makes me a little nervous of the quality on these new ones. I know they're having some issues getting them cranked out, but a little scary. So now that we have all this stuff removed, I'm gonna go ahead and jump over to the S&S disaster kit. We'll open that up and we'll look over the instructions and get started on the install. We can start going, putting this thing back together, going the right direction. So the S&S kit is very well built, very high quality. Even comes with OEM style zip ties to reinstall everything. All new O-rings, all new fittings, everything. This is a really well put together kit. And if you guys had any questions as far as all the stuff I was removing, open these instructions up ahead of time, and they actually have instructions on the removal of all the parts you need to remove before you even start the install on this too. So everything's colored and very good pictures, highlight all the bolts they're talking about and everything. So the instructions are very clear, very well thought out. But yeah, we'll go ahead and start getting all this stuff put together to install it. Make sure you blow compressed air through all these just in case some dirt or anything got in there on shipping, and you'll be good to go. So next thing you want to do is make sure you cover up all your open holes inside your engine, because you're going to want to blow compressed air off down there on top of your CP4 where your metering valve is before you take it out, just to make sure you don't let any debris or anything fall in there. I did already pull the metering valve out. I'll show you. There's 2 torque screws. They're T25s. The one that is up against the coolant passage, I believe it is, on the motor. Yeah, the one that's up against this is so looking down in here, that one's easy to get to. This one you're gonna need a long T25 Torx pit to get to. Yeah, just because there's not enough room in here to get a normal T25 socket in there between this passage here and where the bolt sits. So now we have our S&S block in there, and you're going to reinstall your metering valve on top of that, and they do provide you with new longer bolts to accommodate that. So go ahead and throw that in real quick, and that way the system's closed up. You don't want to have this open for longer than you need to. So now that we have the S&S block plate there installed and the metering valve reinstalled, plug that back in. Make sure you put that locking clip back in. This is your hose. It's going to be running out to your factory fuel bowl location. And S&S's instructions, they say you can reinstall the lower and upper intake manifolds and your CCV hose and put your fuel filter back in place and stuff. But on the 2020 Plus, you have to remove this line here, and it says to use heat to heat this up to get it out of the way. So I don't want all of that stuff in the way. Just with the heat, I don't want to risk ruining anything else. So I'm gonna pull this hose out of the way and heat this line up and get this out next. Here is a better shot of the line I was talking about on the 2020 Pluses. So you have to heat this area here. It's like a heat shrink plastic type thing. So you have to heat this and remove this section of line here. And that will be getting replaced with a hose with a hose clamp and a barb on there. So we'll go ahead and get the heat gun and get started on that. So here's a shot of it with that piece removed. Like I said, I heated up. I still wasn't having luck getting it over there. I don't think the heat gun was getting hot enough, and I didn't really want to get a torch in here with all this stuff around it. So I just made one slice with a razor blade down it, and I was able to pop it off then. So now you're going to want to grab this piece from your kit here, this hose is going to slide over that piece we just took off and tighten down the hose clamp on it, and then you'll have this quick connect fitting on the other end. So here you can see I have that line installed with the hose clamp on it. You're going to want to route the hose from the billet block down here in front of your oil fill cap. Once we get the lower intake reinstalled, this will go back here. You're going to run a clamp here and a clamp to your oil fill spout, and this will wrap right around here to the factory location. So I'm going to go ahead and install the lower and upper intake and get that crankcase vent re-hooked up, and I'll start the video back up from there and show how to do the rest of the install for the disaster kit. Okay, so we are getting close here. We got the lower intake installed, the upper intake installed, the EGR pipe reinstalled, all my sensors rehooked up. I just hooked up that fitting down there for the S&S kit, and I think I need to put this back on, obviously, and then I think I'm gonna do that after I reinstall that fuel filter housing though. So that's probably the next step. So let's go ahead and throw that in there. Okay, so now we have our fuel filter housing reinstalled. Next thing we're going to do is install these fittings into the filter block, and you install the O-ring and tighten these to 10 foot-pounds. Now after we have these fittings installed here and torqued down 10 foot-pounds, we're going to hand thread these rubber isolators into the back so we can install the mounting bracket. Now we have the rubber isolators installed, just hand tighten them, and then you're going to want to put the bracket on so it faces up, and install these two nuts and tighten with a 7/16 wrench. Now that we have the brackets tightened on there, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and install this filter housing onto the truck. And with this 2022 or 17 plus, I should say, you're going to use this long bolt, a washer, a spacer, and then a nylock nut. So in order to install this, we have to pop off these clips here along the cowl. I think there's only three, 1, 2, and then that third one over there, just to be able to lift this up a little bit. And there's going to be a push pin we have to remove. It's probably actually more over here. Pop the push pin out, and this bolt is going to go through there, so your filter housing will hang right here. So we have this wiper cowl unclipped here, and you can see that push pin there. We're going to want to pop that out, and that's where the bolt's going to go. So now we have that push pin uninstalled. Go ahead and drop that bolt down in there. Don't forget to use your washer. And after that, you're going to put this spacer, and then it's going to go through the metal bracket, and you're going to use that nylock nut on the bottom side. Tighten this all up. So here's what it looks like after it's installed. You're going to use a 4mm Allen head and a 7/16 either ratchet wrench or socket, whatever you got to reach on the bottom side of that. And tighten it up, but don't get too crazy because you don't want to crack that plastic. You want it to be firm, but don't crank on it. So now all we have to do is run our lines and put our filter on. So as you can see here, I only have this one put on. I left these ones off, that one and this one, to keep them out of the way, because next we're going to remove this line from that fitting there. You can see I already started pushing the clip out, so I should be able to just pull that off, and we're gonna have to rotate that fitting 180 degrees. And then the line it's gonna run from this motor return behind the filter to the fitting on the driver's side, and then it's going to go through the filter, come back out through here, and then the line that comes off of here is going to go into this line, and that's going to go back to the tank. Okay, so there it is, fully installed. Just a recap for the line routing here. This line is the one that comes from the CP4, and it tees off here, You're gonna plug that one in down there where you added that new rubber hose with the hose clamp. The top line is gonna go to the middle of the fuel filter housing. This one is the same way it was from the factory. This one is also the same way it is from the factory. And then you're going to disconnect the fitting that is normally there, route your S&S hose behind the filter to the inlet side, through the filter to another S&S supplied hose, wrap it around here by your oil fill cap, and then it's going to plug back into that fitting that you disconnected from the hard line here. And you have to turn that fitting 180 degrees so it lines up with this. All right, so that's the full install there. I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall my hot side pipe, cold side pipe, and my air intake, rehook up my coolant and vacuum hose, and make sure all your sensors are plugged in, and that'll wrap up this job for this S&S disaster kit install on a 2022 6.7. All right, guys, so there we have it. Everything's put back together. Intake's put back on, coolant line's rerouted and connected, vacuum line's hooked on, throttle body put on. Make sure you don't forget to plug in the sensor for that, because there's a good chance if you don't, it's dangling, it's gonna get caught in the belt. Cold side pipe's reinstalled, hot side pipe reinstalled. I put my fasteners back in for my oil dipstick tube. Everything's good for the fuel filters. Oh, and there goes my light. Sorry about that, guys. Yep, so now all we have to do is cycle the key a few times and she should be ready to fire up. So guys, there you have it. That's how you do a install of a S&S disaster prevention kit on a 2022 6.7. The process should be pretty similar to 17 through 22s. The only difference is the upper intake manifold. Well, actually both intake manifolds are different on the 20 pluses. So, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions, comment down below, and stay tuned because there's gonna be more videos of this truck. We're gonna be doing a lot more work to it before it leaves here. It's gonna leave here a lot more reliable, and it's gonna weigh less than when it came in too. So stay tuned.